What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to the Two Goat Show. We're your hosts, Mariah and Steph. Steph, happy Two Goat Thursday. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm good, Mariah. Happy to go Thursday, and congrats to you for getting 800 subscribers. That's a big
Thanks.
milestone right there. So, guys, you got to continue subscribing to Mariah's channel. Get that up to 1,000.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Chat, what's up? Happy Two Goat Thursday. Hope everybody's had a great week so far. Almost made it through. Almost made it through. We have a few things. There's not too much going on, obviously, in the football world right now. But we have a few things to talk about. Obviously, I know that you've already done a show and talked about CMC being on the cover of Madden, but earlier his dad, Ed McCaffrey, put out a tweet and had said, it is surreal and incredible to see CMC don the cover of Madden 25. Proud dad moment. We've come a long way from seeing my boys play Madden 2001. And now Christian will continue the late, great John Madden's legacy. Just make sure to bump my overall to 99 if you find me in Madden, he says. So, I was thinking, because as fans, this is a huge thing, right? Especially to have a running back on the cover of Madden, it doesn't happen very often, right? So for us to have, him on there, I felt like a huge thing for that. So proud of him, just because, we just had talked about on last week's show, comparing his yards, his usage, what he means to this team. Remember when we were talking about the contracts and comparing it to what Ayuk has done and the yardage and touchdowns and everything, and just what CMC has done for this team in such a short amount of time has been so awesome. And then, once his dad puts out that tweet today, I'm thinking that has to be such a cool thing for a dad, right? Like your son, is on the cover of the biggest NFL game that there is out there. I couldn't even imagine having that, he has to be so proud. Even though I know that you already talked about it, kind of give me your thoughts, as a fan, what you thought hearing that CMC's on the cover.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. To me, it puts the cherry on top of the 2023 season for Christian McCaffrey, solely as an individual contributor. Obviously, Super Bowl would have been, I guess, the ultimate cherry on top, maybe some fudge in there. But, I think as an individual contributor and player of the sport, this is huge for McCaffrey. I think we realize how much this means for any player, but it seems to feel even more for Christian McCaffrey, and how he has memories of playing it with his brother and throwing to his dad in the game. That's crazy, right? That you could do that. And I mean, it just shows how crazy that family is too, and how crazy talented really that family is. And I can't think of a player who deserved it more based on the performance that he put up in 2023. And so, offensive player of the year, Madden, there's the list goes on of all the things that he accomplished last season. So yeah, this is a great way to end it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the whole Madden curse thing?
Well, I think the curse has been dead for a few years now. The last player who was cursed after being on the cover was Antonio Brown. And so I think he must have just
he
sucked
hasn't
up
the
all
Madden
the
curse ever
powers.
since.
He sucked up all the powers of the. I don't know if you guys watch How I Met Your Mother or have watched it. There's this episode that's called The Blitz, and it's pretty much a curse in the show, and there has to be someone else that takes the curse for it to be done for one person. Someone else has to inherit it, basically. So I think Antonio Brown it still has the Madden curse to this point, so no one else can be cursed while he is still cursed. So yeah, I'm not because it hasn't been a thing for some years, I'm not as worried about it. I do think like it did have a very strong history at one point, and so if we were talking about 5-10 years ago, I might have a different tune about it, right? I might be like, yo, this is terrible. Worst thing that happened. I also think that maybe the Madden curse lost a bit of its power just because people maybe stopped believing in it at one point. I feel like people's energy and like what people believe gives certain things power, right? So like maybe that gave the Madden curse some power. People believing in it for so long, and now it's fizzled out. So I don't believe in it. I think a lot of fans are not really believing in it anymore. It doesn't seem like Christian believes in it, so that's good. And for Christian to not have that kind of hanging over his head for the season and worrying about it, yeah, that's good for me.
I like what Kenny says here. Madden took the curse with him. He was good like that.
Yeah.
This is crazy to think, like when you think about the number side, what Rob D brings up here, about 1,700 players will be on an active NFL active roster, but only one man gets on the Madden cover each year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That show, like what an amazing freaking season he had for them not to just give it to a quarterback. Like it's so easy for them to give everything to quarterbacks nowadays, but and at a time when we know how much Christian stands up, and of course he wants to be the highest paid whatever for himself, right? But for the whole position, like at a time when running backs are so like their value has gone out the window, like we talked about year after year recently. And now, for him to again get the pay that he just got, last week whenever it was announced. And now for this, like it's not just an awesome thing for him, for his career and everything, but for their entire position group. Like I love that to give the running backs some credit, because they do a lot of the freaking hard work out there. They're the ones that get beat up and all this shit, and then like the quarterback takes all the credit. So
yeah. He's put on for the running backs, this offseason, right? I think with the contract that he got, the new contract, that's going to help other running backs in the league ask for a little more money around the league. And then, just him being on the cover and having the season that he did, I think shows that running backs could still be valuable and be one of the most valuable guys on the team. And so we'll see if the rest of the league, takes notice in that.
Yeah, Kenny says, bless John Madden, drafted 244th in the 21st round and still contributed so much to football. That's crazy. Because there used to be like so many rounds of the draft. Remember, like
nuts.
Like the draft went on forever.
Why were there so many rounds?
I don't know. All right. Let's see what else. So you had texted me something that I haven't even heard about. So let's just slip it in right here. And that was about Charlie Warner and the Falcons and a tampering situation. What you got for me, Steph? Let me hear what's going on with this.
All right. So I guess there was an investigation between the Eagles and then also the Falcons. If they tampered this offseason, the NFL, of course, was conducting that. The Eagles were not penalized for tampering. However, the Falcons were. They lost a 2025 fifth-round pick for violating the anti-tampering policy. And it wasn't just one player that they tampered with. It was Kirk Cousins, it was Darnell Mooney, and it was former 49er Charlie Warner.
Dang.
I mean, that's pretty crazy. They even fined the team and the GM. So a pretty serious charge. But I think it's just kind of funny, like Charlie Warner of all guys, Kirk Cousins. Okay, like that I could get. It's quarterback. A lot of people were clamoring for Kirk Cousins this offseason, but Charlie Warner, I mean, you could have probably just waited and still got him. Like, what?
Yeah, like
interesting choice.
And especially because it's not like that's a team that's in the need of a tight end. Like they just drafted a tight end in the first round, a couple, so it's not like they're like sought after this not number one tight end potentially or whatever, so it's just like you wanted a backup blocking tight end like that bad. Like, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, because I knew they were under investigation for the whole Kirk Cousins thing and, him opening his mouth during his press conference and all that. But I wonder how they figure out, like, what there was, like, messages between the two or between him and the agent and them, or like, how do they even find out, like, that it was done before?
Yeah, like how much
like a certain time,
how much jurisdiction do they have? Like, is it like the FBI where they could be like, we need to look at your phone records?
Yeah,
and they
pulling
like
up
get
old texts.
and they just get it. Like, is that right? Yeah, that's I don't know. Or do they look at emails maybe? Because the emails I'm sure are at NFL.com. Or I don't know, maybe they're at 49. Like those all go under the NFL, so maybe they could look at email conversations and stuff. I have no idea how that works.
Al Bundy brings up a good point here, because other teams, like, they've lost a lot when it comes to tampering things in the past. So to be found guilty tampering with not just one player, but 3 different players, and to only lose a 5th round draft pick, like, they're trying to get the Falcons.
What had the Dolphins lost? I don't remember. I know
I
they had
thought it
gotten
was
penalized.
like a high round, 1st or 2nd, some high round draft picks, I thought.
Yeah, I wonder why the reason for the, I guess, difference in
that's interesting.
penalization. Yeah.
They're trying to make the Falcons relevant again, that's why.
Damn, okay, so Al Bundy just commented they lost a 1st, a 3rd, and they were fined $1.5 million. What the hell?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, that's quite a difference in penalties there.
Yeah.
And then for, like, guilty of 3 different freaking tampering with 3 different people. Like, you would think that the charges would be, I don't know, very interesting.
It's crazy.
Let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. A couple different things on Brock. Again, I don't know what Chris Sims and his obsession now with Brock Purdy. It's very funny, because I swear, like, there was a time as a 49ers fan when Jimmy was our quarterback, and you would have these national media people, Chris Sims for one, like, always up there talking like he was the greatest thing since sliced bread out there. And now, like, when you actually, like, we finally, like, have a quarterback that's actually out there doing something, and it's like the national media can't wait to tear him down fast enough. Like, it's very strange the way things have got switched around here. But Chris Sims has said that if the 49ers were to switch quarterbacks with the Packers and had Jordan Love as our quarterback, that we would have won the Super Bowl last season.
I mean,
and during that, he talks about how Jordan Love, went on this 10-game whatever run to end the season, was lighting up the world, yada yada. But so Purdy was playing bad? Like, I didn't think so. Like I thought Purdy gets no grace whatsoever for never having a fucking off season yet until right now. Coming back from a major surgery that people didn't even know if he'd be able to throw a football again. Right. Like, don't forget that part, and still led his team to the Super Bowl. And yet, that's what I'm saying. Like, they can't wait to, oh, no, he didn't do anything. It was like, we've watched this team carry a quarterback to the Super Bowl before. Now we've finally seen a quarterback actually help to lead his team to the Super Bowl. And oh no, he's shit. If he would have been switched with 90% of the NFL, the 49ers would have won the Super Bowl. Forget they were going against Mahomes or any of that factors, But then in that game that we played against Green Bay, he says, oh yeah, Jordan Love threw 2 interceptions, but Brock could have thrown some absurd number, like 6 or 7. He said, but he didn't. Like, you now get punished for what you could have done bad. Like one did bad and one didn't. But yet one's getting punished because he could have thrown interceptions, not the guy that actually threw the interceptions.
Yeah, the way that people talk about Brock Purdy and don't hold those same standards when they're talking about other quarterbacks is insane to me, and we've seen it for so long now. And Chris Sims, I don't know if him and Kyle had some falling out. I know they were boys, but like, dude, it's been crazy. Like this, to your point, that has kind of been his thing since Jimmy Garoppolo. It really started around the Trey Lance thing. Like he also was not a big Trey Lance fan. And so after that, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but that's kind of been his thing, just hating on the 49ers quarterbacks. Brock Purdy, people use hypotheticals to tear Brock Purdy down. Like, is literally the only argument they can make against him. Things that aren't in reality. Like, it's crazy to me, because also, I think if we're talking about hypotheticals, I think within the hypothetical, you can argue that Jordan Love wouldn't have won the Super Bowl if he was the quarterback. Dude, in reality, he couldn't even win the NFC championship, or sorry, the divisional round game against the 49ers. And what, you were expecting him to win the Super Bowl, like, magically, just because he was there? Like, I don't understand how people can come to these conclusions. And it sucks because I like Jordan Love as a quarterback. And obviously I love Brock Purdy as a quarterback. But then, like, people, for one, like, pit them against each other, like, very often, I guess, because of, like, how young they are, and, like, they started quarterbacking, or they started starting for their teams at similar times. And so people can't just enjoy the fact that we're witnessing two really good quarterbacks. And yeah, you best believe Brock Purdy is one of those, like, really good quarterbacks that I'm talking about here. And I mean, they're different, you know, and I think people just get enamored with, you know, the gunslinger types, you know, the CJ Strouds, and, like, guys who can make the crazy throws, because like, that's like what guys like Patrick Mahomes, like, that's what they do, right? And it's impressive, and it's like, ooh, but like, we can't forget that, like, there's traditional quarterbacks in the league, more traditional quarterbacks in the league that maybe aren't as athletic, maybe don't have all the arm strength in the world, but are still really good quarterbacks. Like, Tom Brady was that kind of quarterback, that he wasn't like this ultra athletic dude, but I mean, he had a lot of the same attributes, I think, that Brock Purdy does, in terms of, like, non-physical, like, attributes,
right?
You know, and obviously that is a huge part of what makes a quarterback, that a lot of people, you know, don't take into consideration. And as Technic Sheik says here, like, you could argue Purdy was the reason the Niners were in the Super Bowl. Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And I think, like, us 49er fans know that, but for some reason, it's like, it's not clicking. It's not clicking for everyone else, because I think they see Brock Purdy, and I think they watch 49er games, like, casually. Like, they're not, like, obviously as invested as we are. So now we know what Brock Purdy is to us, but it's going to take a little while longer for some of these other guys to get it, clearly.
Yeah, and, like, I get it with the whole, you know, big arm gunslinger quarterback. Like, listen, that's why I was a fan of Trey Lance and wanted him to work, right? Like, when we drafted him, like, I wanted that, you know, I want that quarterback that could get out there and, you know, take over the game and do all this shit. But once, you know, the situation happened between them, and, you know, we got Purdy and seen the way he worked, specifically with what we're doing with Kyle Shanahan and the system that he runs and everything, like, this is what works. You know, like, Shanahan don't want that guy that's going to go out there and just do what he does. You know, like, we know Shanahan wants to have his thumb on top of freaking everything that's going on out there. Like, he's playing the freaking Madden controller out there. Okay. So this Brock is exactly, like, I think of the marriage between Brock Purdy and Shanahan, and it's just so perfect, you know, like, And you could see it, like when Shanahan talks about Purdy, when he's out there watching Purdy play, like he's like a little kid, like so excited. Like, and I never saw Shanahan like that up until this point, unless he was talking about Kirk Cousins. That's it. Like I wanted us, like, why can't we have a quarterback that our coach actually likes? Like you could see, like that wasn't the case with Jimmy Garoppolo. And like, so finally we have that. And it's just like now the rest outside of the 49ers, fans and whatnot, it's like everybody else is just like, oh no, he sucks. No. Like I even see articles that Shanahan's not happy with Purdy, and it's just like, where's the shit coming from? Like it's that slow. Like the slowest part of the offseason just barely started. Like buckle up. Like you're already putting articles out like this. Like I can't wait to see what else is going to come out. But it's just ridiculous. Another thing that happened with Purdy in the news, it was his quarterback coach that also coaches Caleb Williams, Will Hewlett. He revealed that Caleb and Brock Purdy, as well as, let me see, Anthony Richardson, they're going to be working out with Mason Rudolph, John Wolford, which is the Buccaneers quarterback, Kyle Trask. So they said that they're all planning to, work out together this off season. I thought that's pretty cool because, you talk about, obviously Purdy's not the guy that's out there running around and all this shit, right? But we saw him do that. We know that he can do that. That's definitely something I would like to see more of. Like how he was during the playoffs when, like, he needed to win us the game and he's like, okay, I'm going to do what I got to do to win. Like, I would love to see more of that play from Purdy. And I feel like him, like this list of guys that he's going to be out there with, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, like, I feel like that, like, I love that. Like whatever he can, obviously they're going to be getting a lot from throwing wise working with Brock Purdy, right? Like whatever he can get from the mobile aspect of those guys' games, like I hope he picks that up while he's working with them. What are your thoughts on Brock Purdy working out with the young guys?
I mean, honestly, on that last point, I think Brock Purdy has already like maximized his athleticism based on what he has to work with, right? Like, I think he does what have we called it? Scampers. He scampers and
Yeah,
he's got wheels. Dude, like when I watch clips from the Lions game, the NFC Championship game, that dude was moving. And
I love
so
that. Yeah.
I think he does have that down. It's just sneaky, right? Because like you don't expect it coming from him. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure like there's probably some other things he could pick up. I would love if he picked up how to slide correctly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then maybe like the elusiveness. Although again, like Brock kind of has that already. Like he's juked out some dudes and he can cut and like, switch direction on a dime. Like he's, again, it's just like you don't see him as being that kind of dude because obviously it isn't his like biggest attribute or anything like that. But I mean, he can bust those moves out if he wants to here and there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting group of guys that he'll be working with. And yeah, anytime like there's a meeting of the minds, you could say with any of these like quarterbacks, anytime that you can exchange, tips and things like that of things you could pick up from each other, I think it's a positive. And obviously working with Will Hewlett has been beneficial to Purdy, through his career so far. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also excited for just Brock to be able to work on these things. Like last year, he didn't get to work on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
His rookie season, I mean, he was a rookie, he wasn't getting a lot of snaps, but now like he's building off of what he's already done. And I love that because what he's done so far, as we know, has been really good. So if he can be better, that would just be the ultimate. It's hard to imagine him being better. Statistically, he might not be, right? Statistically, it would be hard to top what he did last season, but it's still in the realm of possibility that even with the stats not being better, he is better as a quarterback.
Yep, I agree. John V says, Steph, I've been praying for sliding lessons for many seasons now. Even like, I feel like even back with Trey Lance, like that's something we all were like, can't you freaking slide? You know, now again, like, please slide. Like you would think, I don't know. I guess if you don't play baseball growing up, like that's just not a natural reaction is to slide. I don't know. You want to slide head first. Like it seems like it would be more of a natural reaction to slide feet first if you were going to slide at all. But you know, I guess they just try to get down how they get down. But yeah, definitely we want to move it around a little bit more, but please don't get hurt. So yes, slide when able to. Kenny, this is funny right here because I brought up, you know, Mason Rudolph. He says, all the other players used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph play in any Steelers games. Oh man. Steelers, they got definitely an interesting situation going over there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know that you had talked about this and this has been out for a few days, but I had seen an article come out recently on the whole Trent Williams possibly wanting more money. The article, though, that I saw was now that the 49ers, now this isn't my thoughts, this is just what the article was. Now that the 49ers window of winning the Super Bowl is closing, their stars are asking for bigger paydays because now that you used to want to go there because winning the Super Bowl was an option. But now they're trying to clean up and get the most money that they can because they no longer see that Super Bowl window open. You see what I'm saying? So like Trent Williams is like, okay, now that we have to pay Brock Purdy this coming up season, our Super Bowl window is closing. So let me hurry up and get my last bag that I can because this is it.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple things. I would argue that even if the 49ers won the Super Bowl, that there would be players like wanting to get a bag or like a new deal, right? And the thing with Trent Williams is I don't think at this point he's based on the report from Jeremy Fowler, and he has clarified it since then. I don't think that Trent Williams has even gone to the 49ers and been like, hey, like I want a new deal. It to this point it's just been as Fowler said, like people whispering about it. Like people thinking that Trent Williams is probably eventually going to want a new deal because he's still at the top of his game, but he's not the top paid at his position. So it would make sense. Like that's kind of how it seems at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, like in his original report, which I wasn't a fan of, maybe Trent Williams maybe might want a new deal eventually. What does that mean? You know, and then like using the word whispers. But he pretty much doubled down on that and was like, yeah, like people around the league have, you know, thought that he might want a new deal at some point, right? But it's at some point. Trent did report to minicamp, you know, after his daughter's graduation. So it's not like he's holding out or anything. I don't think this is like the Christian McCaffrey situation, for example. Now, when Trent Williams is ready, and let's be honest, he has every reason to ask for a new contract, just being who he is, right? If he did come to the 49ers, I think the 49ers would be ecstatic to give him a new deal, right? And reward him, and hopefully it would mean like he would play for a few years longer, right? And they would have that, like, hopefully a guarantee that he wouldn't be retiring within the span of that contract, right? I feel like there's a lot of plus sides to getting Trent a new deal, but I also don't think the 49ers would do it unless he came to them and was like, hey, like, can I get a new deal? Which I don't think that has happened yet.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people in the chat bring up good points. You know, Kenny had said Trent has earned a bonus. Like, I agree. And, you know, Invader has talked about, you know, they need assurance before, you know, like make sure he's not going to retire. And that's my whole thing. Like, if he's only going to play, let's say this season and one more season after that. So let's say 2 more seasons in whole. Like, I'm all good with, okay, giving him a little bump of, like guaranteed money or whatnot. But to say like he needs this big pay raise and this extended contract when the guy literally we have to ask him every single season if he's going to retire yet, is just kind of crazy. Yeah. Especially when we have young guys like waiting to get paid. And now we have all the older guys coming forward and like, don't forget about me. I need another payday too. And it's like, can we just get the guys that need freaking contracts like done? Like before we got to repay up everybody that's already had a freaking contract signed in the last 2 to 3 years. Like, right. It's just like, oh my God. Like, and the thing, with the contracts and the way, especially the 49ers front load shit and do things, it's like, guys will sign 5-6 year contracts, and now after already 2 years into the contract, they're ready for another payday. Yeah. So it's like, don't just sign guys to 2-3 year contracts then, okay? And then so we already have to be prepared, like it's coming. Like I just want,
which is crazy because usually it's the players that want more years onto the deal, but
really that means shit now.
Yeah. I think players, obviously agents are like realizing that the guarantees, that's everything, that's really what you should be pushing for.
Let's talk about Ayuk. We had laid out the little crumb trail last week about, all these things that were coming about him. This week, a couple more things out that I'd like to get your thoughts on. And yesterday when I did my giveaway show, somebody had brought up in the comments that this was going out in the news. I hadn't heard about it. I have since seen this. But this is the Joey Bosa news again circulating. Like I had thought, like I hadn't heard about Joey Bosa since the draft, since all that, like I thought he was out of the plans. 49ers fans weren't talking about him coming here anymore. But I guess I was wrong. Now it's circulating about Ayuk being traded for Joey Bosa. What are your thoughts on that?
Because, I hadn't even heard that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it either. Like I said, till somebody brought this up in the chat yesterday. And to me, like, that's like the whole situation is just very weird. Like, why would we take on Joey Bosa's contract when we're bitching about even paying Ayuk? And then you're giving up a weapon. Like, we finally have a guy opposite Bosa on the team right now. And now we're worried about getting another guy it's just like really weird timing for everything. So give me your thoughts on that first.
I definitely wouldn't do that. For one, look, I'm not opposed to like a player for player trade,
right?
But that's not the one I'd be pursuing. I understand that like edge rushers are very valuable in the league. Like we're talking about positional value. I think edge rushers like up there, right? But it's still unbalanced because Joey Bosa is an older player, whereas Brandon Ayuk is just coming off his rookie contract. So the age difference there, Brandon Ayuk has been healthy in his career. Joey Bosa has definitely not been. And so I think that makes the scale just a little uneven for my liking. And so, no, I absolutely would not do that.
Yeah, same. All right. The other things that have to do with him were, again, we had put together all of Matt Mayoko's crumb trails last week. He again is in the news this week saying, he said, if you asked me a month ago or 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, I'm sure I did think this and I did say this. I thought the 49ers would re-sign Brandon Ayuk right before training camp. They get him locked up and away we go. Now with the Jennings deal, with the Pearsall, with the exploding wide receiver market, I'm just not nearly as confident in saying that. I don't think it's just a slam dunk that the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk's representation work out a long-term extension. So there's one side of it. Albert Breer as well went on to a radio show or whatever and was talking about the Ayuk deal. And he says on his side, he said, my sense is getting in the neighborhood of where they'll have to lock Brandon Ayuk up, whom they really do value and love. I think the final number, if I had to guess, will wind up being 29 million per year, which would put Ayuk past the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, and Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and still behind the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson, by quite a bit. By quite a bit, which I was putting bit and which together. By quite a bit, which would be understandable. He then, just goes on to say that he thinks teams will start calling more about Brandon Ayuk and seeing that there's a deal. But then mentions about after Brandon Ayuk, getting paid, about a deal being done for Debo, about trading him. But then talks about too that, like it wouldn't make sense to trade Debo for a draft pick, and this is what we talk about all the time, right? Like it's not making sense for the 49ers, if they're planning to win this season, to trade anybody for draft picks for the future. Like it makes zero sense. So now that we're sitting, what's today's date? June 13th. Where are you at with Brandon Ayuk? Does he get paid? Does he not get paid? Does he get traded? Do you see that there is a way that he plays on his 5th-year option? Where are you at with it?
Yeah, I definitely see both scenarios being a possibility. Right now, I'd say, 70-30, 70, he gets his contract, 30, he plays on his 5th-year option. And I'd put if he did play on his 5th-year option, I'd put the trade scenario as an even unlikelier, scenario in this case. There definitely has been a change of tune, right? In the local media, like Matt Barrows, Matt Mayoko, what they have kind of been saying about the Brandon Ayuk negotiations it's taken a turn in like the last week and a half, right? Like it was very noticeable. It kind of came out of nowhere. And they're all kind of saying the same things as like, well, they drafted Ricky Pearsall and they got all these other contracts, Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, which, by the way, that doesn't even make sense because the first 2 years of both of those deals are very manageable for the 49ers, and it lowered the cap hit for both of those guys, which would in turn make a Brandon Ayuk deal even more possible to have on the books for the 49ers, at least for the first couple of seasons. And then, as they always do, you could kick the can down a road and see what you want to do after those first 2-3 years. Ricky Pearsall, like we knew the 49ers drafted a wide receiver in the first round for a few months. And right when it happened, no one was raising that alarm as, oh, this means Brandon Ayuk is not going to get extended. Like, so why the sudden change of tune? Right. That's my question. What I think it is I think it's the 49ers speaking through the media, right, at this point. And I think Ayuk kind of wants to speak through his guys too. He had TJ Houshmandzadeh on the radio talking about, hey, if Brandon Ayuk had gotten the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, he'd already be there. He thought he was gonna get his deal. Now he's not so sure, like, so both sides are talking to each other through the media, which I think it could be a good thing. Like you could look at it as a good thing. There's some communication happening there. We also heard from Mike Silver that Brandon Ayuk had been offered $26 million based on what he had heard. Now, $26 million average per year is less than Jalen Waddle, which, you can argue, oh, that's a bit of a slight. Like, damn, you're not even going to give him like close to Jalen Waddle or what he was getting for annual. So, which, by the way, like their numbers are pretty comparable to each other. So you would think he would at least get, in that very close to that. So 26, a little bit lower than that. 2 million, it's not that large of a bridge to cross, but with Albert Breer, and I hadn't heard that. So thanks for mentioning that he thinks the final number could be 29. I'd be surprised if it goes up that high, especially if it's true that the 49ers offered 26 million. Like that then is a pretty, it's a large enough gap that I'm like, I mean, it's 3 million, but I don't know if they do that. Yeah, I guess I'd be more curious about the guarantees because, like, if if they make his annual 29, I think the 49ers would want his guarantees to be less than the Amon-Ra deal, which they could do. But yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it feels like the 49ers have dug in their heels. At least that's what they want Brandon Ayuk in his camp to believe, and they want him to accept the offer that that they have laid out on the table, and they're pretty much saying this is our final offer. Now they might have another final offer, right? If things get real dicey and it starts to get real close to training camp, then they're gonna have to meet somewhere in the middle. Then, but yeah, I still think it gets done. Like I think there's like at least 1 month before I think we start not panicking, but like we're like, hey, like this is around the time that these deals usually get done. Like what's going on? And so I think that's plenty of time for them to bridge the gap of just like a couple million. So yeah, I'd say 70-30 and 70 he gets his deal.
Yeah. I hope you're right that he does. I'm still holding out hope here, guys. Leon brings up a trade scenario here. Says, wouldn't mind sending Ayuk to the Bills for Dawson Knox and Matt Milano. They need a number 1 wide receiver. Ayuk and Allen get to light up Kansas City twice a year, and we get a good tight end 2 and a starting level linebacker.
I mean, I don't know if the Bills would do that just because it's 2 players, but they did draft the tight end last season, so like it's not like Dawson Knox is a showstopper.
Right.
Matt Milano, I mean, but then what would they do at linebacker?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think they would do it. I think also they want to see what they have in Keon Coleman. They have Josh Allen as quarterback, who they probably feel could make any wide receiver good enough, right? So I don't think they would do it.
Al Bundy says Ayuk that he thinks that he gets more, that he's going to want more than Waddle's 28.5 million. Vader right under that says 28.6 should do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are the talking points, the negotiation points that I think his agent's certainly going to be getting into. So we'll see.
Says, I bet I won't accept anything less than 30 million on average. It's going to be very interesting to see where that guaranteed number's at, because like, do they just, like you can easily, like with one of the guys, I don't know if it was Amon-Ra's or one of them, like they added like the extra year in the back end, like to get the number like per, up higher, but it's like he's not really even getting anything close to that, so it's like they have ways to make the numbers appear, any way that you freaking want them to, but like what's the money that he's getting in his pocket, I think really matters.
Right. Yeah, and like looking at the contracts, like if the 49ers are offering 26 million, and let's just say like if you expected Brandon Ayuk to take that, I would think the guarantees would have to be in the vicinity or more than Waddle. Waddle got 76 million guaranteed. Amon-Ra got 77. So do you really want that much of the contract guaranteed? Like that's part of it too. Yeah, I mean, I think as far as guarantees go, he'll definitely be in the top 5. I mean, he'll be in the top 5 for, I guess, both average per year and guarantees. Yeah, I mean, I think at least 28 million should be. I hope Brandon Ayuk would accept something in the 28 million range.
Yeah, I think that's around to the sweet spot. Hopefully they just get it freaking done. Okay, I'm tired of this. All right, one last thing before I get to the who would you. And now that all the little mandatory camp and all this has wrapped up, after hearing all the different reports and seeing whatever you've seen and all this, gathered all your info from it, is there any position group that you're more worried about now that you think, okay, maybe we can still make a move and pick up a free agent to add competition? Or are you feeling the same way that you felt about everything prior to these little camps?
Yeah, I would say I still feel the same prior to, mini camp and all that. And I'll say that for now, I'm happy with tight end because they did get Logan Thomas. I think that's a solid TE2 for them to have. But I am worried about linebackers still. Like, I don't know. I think it's the unknown, right? Like, I don't know what to expect from Devondre Campbell. He's obviously not the same type of linebacker that Dre Greenlaw is, that we've grown so accustomed to seeing. I'm sure, like, Greenlaw isn't perfect, right? Like, I'm sure there's maybe some things Campbell could do better, but I mean, I don't know. I just feel like those are big shoes to fill. And then behind that, I mean, who's going to be like the third linebacker? Is it going to be D Winters? I think it's good. We're hearing good things about D Winters, right? But yeah, I would definitely. I don't think though that there's another like linebacker just hanging out there that they could pick up. The other question, or the other, I guess, position that I would be a little unsure about is the safety group, just because Funga's an unknown, right? Like, is he going to be ready week 1? He's aiming for that, right? But you never know. And
Right.
as I always say, return to play does not equal return to performance. He might not be the same Hufanga that we know and love week 1 if he is back week 1, right? So obviously there is someone who they could get. It's a guy who they had last year, Sean Gibson, who if he still wants to continue playing, right? He hasn't officially like retired or anything. So if he wants to continue playing, like, that would be an obvious option for the 49ers to bring in training camp time, before the start of the season. And, as long as he's been staying in shape and all that. Because I like Jair Brown, but I still feel like there needs to be like a veteran in that group. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah. Vic brings up the O-line and DBs. Alberto says O-line. Tanya says O-line. So it seems like we're going into another training camp where a lot of the faithful are probably worried about the O-line and maybe the lack of moves that the 49ers made when it comes to the O-line, which has led me to believe that they're more comfortable with their O-line than I guess we are. But I don't know, like, this is like a constant thing now that, like, we're starting the season. Well, we're not starting the season yet, but we're gonna start, the season activities, and our O-line is not maybe up to par where we think it should be. Like, we talk about how great, Brock is, and, how he can use this time to get better and all what we're expecting from him. But it's like, we can't expect much from him if the O-line's not protecting him either, so.
I think they improved as the season went on. And you can look at the Super Bowl and be like, well, Steph, look what happened in the Super Bowl. John Feliciano, who was the starter at that point late in the season, wasn't there. So, like, if you're looking at John Feliciano instead of Spencer Burford, like, the offensive line is already like so much better than it was when like Spencer Burford was the starter. And I also think like Colton McKivitz, second year as the starter, and having a better guard next to him, I think there's opportunity for him to have a better season as well. And I mean, I do think it was slightly overblown, right? Like, just slightly, the offensive line thing. Now, I still wanted the 49ers to address offensive line. That was more so because I wanted the 49ers to have an off tackle for the future. And if they could, like, maybe an upgrade over Colton McKivitz. But that was my main thing. I do like Pooney. I think their depth is way better than it has
Yeah.
been in recent years. So that's important too, because anytime there's an injury, like you want the guy behind him to not just be a guy, like you want to be able to rely on that player. So I think the 49ers have done a good job of, their offensive line depth. And I think we're going to see that pay off a few times this year.
Yeah, when you look around at other, NFL teams and their O lines, it makes me more comfortable with the 49ers O-line situation. Like, it's not as bad as it could be. But then when you're like up against, and especially in the playoffs, like I really like felt this when you're up against and going back to last season when we played at Philly in the playoffs as well, or we're preparing for them, is that when you're going up against like a team like Philly or the Lions and a team that really invests in their O-line and D-line, like you feel that, like it makes a difference. Like you can tell when you're going against some scrub team that doesn't invest in their O-line, and then when you're going against a freaking powerhouse like the Lions O-line. And like I would just wish the 49ers would take just a little bit more care, put a little bit more resources into the O-line. Like always the D-line. Like there's two sides of the trenches here, like and I just feel like, they're constantly always about the D-line, and the offensive line just kind of sputters, but it definitely could be worse. That's for sure. But I just continue to think about, like our running game was so great. Our quarterback was so great, but how much better could they both be if you have a better O-line?
Yeah. I mean, you could say that again, like about like a lot of teams. And the thing is, the problem with this, easier said than done, just because like one, the offensive linemen that become free agents, they get like monster contracts. Like I mean, like you saw how much Mike McGlinchey got.
Yeah,
would
crazy.
you guys have been okay with paying Mike McGlinchey that money? No. Well, for one, I mean, it's because you guys don't think like he was that good. Now imagine a player better than Mike McGlinchey and how much he would have gotten, right? So the 49ers can't afford to put that much money into their offensive line
That's why you
outside
gotta
of like
draft
Trent
guys.
Williams. And Trent Williams, I think will make that exception every time. And then like just the talent of offensive line throughout the NFL is so like I don't know. It's just it doesn't seem like a position that is easy to find really good players in. And I mean, even in the draft, like I think teams struggle finding and developing guys, I think like consistently. Um, there's a steep learning curve, and I think even more so with Kyle Shanahan and like the system that they run. I, I think that I think they know like a rookie most of the time is not going to be able to just come in and like start right away, and so like they rather develop dudes.
Yep.
As long as they have the tools matter more to the 49ers than anything else. Like I'm talking about like short shuttle, if they have like the prototypical body type, things like that.
Yep. All right. One, who would you for you, Steph? Know that you've been working out, all this stuff that you're doing. So a 30-day training class with one current 49er and one past 49er to work on whatever you want. Conditioning, football skills, brain knowledge, whatever it is that you want to gain from these guys. Who you picking? And don't you dare say Nick Bosa.
No, I'm not going to say Nick Bosa only because like I don't think I could get on the Nick Bosa fitness plan. Not that I could get on any NFL player's fitness plan, but you know what I mean. I think Nick Bosa would be on a different level I'm not willing to get to. Okay, as a current player, let's see. I feel like I want to think about the position because myself, if I was, let's just say if I played football, I would want to be like a wide receiver or like a running. I think I'd be a good running back because I feel like I feel like I would have good vision on the field, even though I'm short. But I just think of like, okay, now I'm getting distracted, but I don't like get too distracted. Or like I might be like a good corner too, because like I feel like I'd be good at defense and preventative stuff. So corner I think would be fun. Okay, so now I just got to narrow down. I don't see enough workout videos of the corners though, to be honest. So I see the wide receivers and their workout videos, and they look fun. Like they look like something that would be fun to do. I don't know. I kind of want to say Debo. I feel like Christian McCaffrey would be like too strict. Like he's too like I don't. Yeah,
he's picking Debo so she can eat Mike and Ites all day.
McCaffrey has too much of like a regimen. I don't know. Debo, we can slack off a little bit, but when it's time to like run a little route, we'd be ready.
And what passed?
Oh, the pass player. I think I'm gonna say Jerry Rice because like I think his work ethic was top, and I want to run the hill just to see what it was like.
That's a combo right there, Debo and Jerry Rice.
Yeah, Debo would have to run the hill too. See what he thinks.
Uh-oh. So I'm guessing because your shirt looks like Waldo.
Oh.
Where's Steph. So you see this pink going around, how it matches Steph and everything. I did that before she even came on the show. And it matches, so wasn't even plans. All right, y'all. Steph, you have anything else going this rest of the week?
No, but I do, I did say I was going to put out some little fun series out there. So I'm going to put my sparkling water ratings, do my first video on my Instagram and Twitter, and I'll put it on my YouTube as well, but it might be a short, depending how long it is. Anyway, yeah, so if you're into silly stuff like that, that'll be dropping later today.
Yeah, so make sure you check it out. Me and Steph will be back next Thursday, same time, same place for Two Goat Thursdays. So make sure you come through, like both channels, subscribe to both channels, Steph 49K and Faithfully in Vegas on YouTube. We greatly appreciate everybody that came through, all the comments, all the questions, everybody that helps keep this show going. We appreciate you all. I hope you each have a wonderful rest of your week. Have a safe and great weekend, and we'll see y'all next week. We're out of here.
Peace.
Peace.